It's time for the 12th annual LADWP Holiday Light Festival in Griffith Park from November 26th through December 30th from 5 to 10 p.m. Vehicles can enter at Los Feliz Boulevard. Walkers may park at the LA Zoo parking lot. Shuttle service is available from the LA Zoo parking lot on weekends and December 14th through the 30th. For more information, go to www.dwplightfestival.com or www.ladwp.com. Happy holidays from the LADWP.
LA City View Channel 35. Your city, your channel.
Good morning, Los Angeles, and welcome to the City Council meeting for Wednesday, December 12th, 2007. We are in the John Ferraro Council Chambers in room 340 of City Hall. We meet here every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 a.m. We want to welcome our viewers on Channel 35 and also those who are watching via simulcast on the internet at lacity.org, and any of our listeners who are tuning in through their telephones through Council Phone at 213-621-CITY. We give you three ways to watch or listen to the City Council, either through the television, through the internet, or through your telephone. I'm Council President Eric Garcetti, and I'm joined today by Council Members Wendy Greuel, Councilmember Tom LaBonge, Councilmember Dennis Zine, who are all here pursuant to Council rules on time at 10 a.m. and in their seats. We are awaiting the other Council members who are now late. If they can please join us, Councilmember Alarcon, Councilmember Cardenas, Councilmember Hahn, Councilmember Huizar, Councilmember Perry, Councilmember Reyes, Councilmember Rosendahl, and Councilmember Wesson. Mr. Weiss is excused to arrive at 10:45, and Mr. Smith and Mr. Parks are excused on city business today, so we're not expecting them in council. Again, council members Alarcon, Cardenas, Hahn, Huizar, Perry, Reyes, Rosendahl, Smith, if you will please join us, and Mr. Wesson as well, as soon as you can. Our agendas are available online 72 hours in advance at lacity.org or in person in the city clerk's office. They're also available here in council chambers. If anybody would like to be heard on other items that have not yet received a public hearing, please fill out a public speaker card in the back and give that to one of the sergeants at arms, and we'll make sure to hear your comments. All items receive a public hearing either in committee or in the full council. Also, if you would like to be heard on general public comment, which is for items that are not on the agenda but are under the jurisdiction of the city, please fill out a speaker card and just put public comment in the upper right corner, and we'll make sure that we can hear those comments. If you live closer to Van Nuys, we also would afford you the ability to be heard from Van Nuys City Council chambers, where we meet on the first Friday of each month, but we are always able to view you and your comments via video conferencing capability from Van Nuys, so please take advantage of that if you're closer to Van Nuys City Hall chambers. We are still awaiting a quorum. We have 15 members of the body, and we need 2/3 or 10 members to begin. We still just have 4 members. That's Council Member Greuel, Council Member LaBonge, and Council Member Zine. I'd like to make a second quorum call for the council members who are late. Councilmember Alarcon, Councilmember Cardenas, Councilmember Hahn, Councilmember Huizar, Councilmember Perry, Councilmember Reyes, Councilmember Rosendahl, and Councilmember Wesson. We appreciate the public's patience while we await those council members to establish a quorum, and we will begin as soon as we have 10 members. Thank you. Thank you to the 6 members who are now here, Council members Alarcon, Cardenas, Gruel, Labange, and Zine. We're still awaiting Ms. Hahn, Mr. Huizar, Ms. Perry, Mr. Reyes, Mr. Rosendahl, and Mr. Wesson. If those members will please join us as soon as possible. This is our third quorum call. Council members Hahn, Huizar, Perry, Reyes, Rosendahl, and Wesson. Thank you. Thank you, Council members Alarcon, Cardenas, Gruel, Hahn, Labange, and Zine. We are still awaiting 2 more members to establish a quorum. Sorry, 3 more members. Mr. Huizar, if you will please join us as soon as possible. We are awaiting you in Council. Ms. Perry, if you will please join us right away. We are awaiting you for a quorum as well. Mr. Reyes, if you will please join us. Mr. Rosendahl, if you will please come down as soon as possible. And Mr. Wesson. As soon as we have 3 of those members, we will have a quorum and begin. This is a 4th quorum call. If we do not have quorum in the next few minutes, we will have to adjourn the meeting for lack of a quorum. Thank you. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alarcon, Cardenas, Grohl, Hahn, Weezer, Labange, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Roosevelt, Smith, Weiss, Wesson, Stein, Garcetti, 10 members present and a quorum, Mr. President.
Thank you. Colleagues, we now have a quorum. We will be beginning the meeting, so first order of business, please.
Approval of the minutes.
Ms. Hahn moves and Mr. Labange seconds. Without objection, those will be approved. Next order of business.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
All right, Mr. Zine moves, Mr. Weiss seconds. Without objection, those commendatory resolutions also will be approved. Next order of business.
Do you wish to take a public comment at this time?
Do we have the... Oh, yes. Why don't we run through the agenda first and we'll come back to public comment. Thank you.
First items on the agenda are items noticed for public hearing. Item number 1 are street lighting district ordinances and the recommendation for council action. Actually, it's a hearing, is to continue the hearing and ordinances to January 9th, 2008.
Okay. Colleagues, is there any objection to continuing this ordinances? That ordinance, excuse me. If not, let's go ahead and open the roll on that. Do we need... Okay, we do not need to vote on that. So we will continue that till the 9th of January 2008. Next item, please.
Next item is item number 2, also a public hearing item. It's an airspace vacation at First and Main, and if there are no protests, the council action would be to instruct the city engineer to proceed with the vacation.
Okay. Is there any objection to that, colleagues? If not, the instruction to proceed with the vacation. Let's go ahead and open the roll on the vote. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
That is approved. Next items, please.
Next items are items for which public hearings have been held, items 3 through 21. On item 21, there are 3 reports on the file, and they do conflict.
Okay.
And also, I'm sorry, on item number 8, I believe there's a request from Councilmember Perry to continue that to February 12th.
Okay. Ms. Perry, you'd like to continue that till the 12th of February, number 8? Without objection, we'll continue item 8 till February 12th. Yes, Mr. Labange, and then Ms. Hahn.
No, Ms. Gruhl, Ms. Hahn, then me.
Very gentlemanly of you, yes.
Item
Ms. Gruhl.
16 to call
yes,
special.
we'll call that special. Thank you. And Ms. Hahn?
20.
20. And Mr. Labange?
5 and 7, please.
5 and 7 for Mr. Labange. Okay. Are there specials, colleagues? The 21, which committees did those come out of?
They do conflict. There's the reports all request reports back. However, the days audits request 30 days, EN requests 45, and on arts parks there are no days specified.
Okay. Why don't we go ahead and move the Education Neighborhood 45-day report, if there's no objection to that? And any other specials, colleagues? If not, let's go ahead then and take up the balance together.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. President. 3 and 4 are ords. Do you wish to hold those on the desk?
Yes, we do expect to have 12 members, so let's hold those on the desk. I believe we're just awaiting Mr. Reyes and Mr. Rosendahl to arrive, so as soon as they are here, we will have 12 members. Take the balance up now. Please open the roll, close the roll. Please tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Those are approved, and if there's no objection, we'll send 14 forthwith. Next items, please.
Next items are items for which public hearings have not been held, items 22 through 33.
Mr. Zine.
Mr. President, number 22, back to committee. Personnel, please.
22?
Yes.
Okay. All righty. If there's no objection, we'll send that back to Personnel Committee on item 22. Next, yes, Ms. Hahn? 26, okay.
And, Mr. President, I understand there's a substitute motion in the works on item number 29.
Okay, let's hold that for a substitute. And do we have any cards on these?
I don't have the cards
Okay,
listed.
I think
There might
I'll
be
look
cards.
through here. We've got 22 had cards, but that's been sent back to committee without objection. 29 has as well, so we'll call that special for cards from the public. Okay. On the other items, if nobody wishes to be heard from the public on those, we will open and close those public hearings. If there's no other specials, let's hold 23, which is an ordinance, till we have 12 members. And on the rest, let's go ahead and open the roll, close the roll. Please tabulate the vote.
11 eyes.
Those are approved. 24 will send forthwith if there's no objection on item 24. Next item, please.
And, Mr. President, next item is the closed session item, and the city attorney is recommending that matter be received and filed inasmuch as the settlement has been made.
All right. Is there any objection to receiving and filing, colleagues, on item number 34? If not, let's go ahead and receive and file. We have Mr. Rosendahl here, so if we can take up the ordinances. It's items 3, 4, and 23. With that, let's go ahead and open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 eyes.
Okay, those are approved as well. Okay, does that finish the agenda?
Yes, Mr. President, that's it, and that would take council back to the items called special and public comment.
Okay, we'll go to public comment first. I want to welcome Matthew Preston Schubert as our first speaker. After that, we'll have Sharon Brewer out in Van Nuys, and then we'll come back for John Wellborn. If we could direct our attention for general public comment. Good morning.
Good morning. Council, my name is Matthew Schubert. I'm here today to admit to requesting the government to investigate the funding and the funds for the City of Los Angeles and the State of California. I am proud to say that in this request, I am satisfied, and I believe that the government will ensure that all the funds that are provided to the State of California and to the City of Los Angeles will be directed and will be used properly and effectively. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments this morning. Our next speaker is out in Van Nuys, and that's Sharon Brewer. Good morning, Ms. Brewer.
Morning, Sharon Brewer. First, I wanted to go and complain that there are no agendas over here at Van Nuys. CD6 office is closed until 10:30, and the mayor's office door is locked. So something needs to be done when there are staff meetings, so that at least there's one copy of the agenda. What I would like to know, I have a question about the policy for city vehicles being used to transport family members, especially children, and if they are supposed to be doing that, or if they're going to on city business, that they use their own vehicle. I also wanted to take and talk on 21, which you ended up moving, and it's the joint use possibilities of city parks and city schools. My question is, who's going to take, if the parks take over from the school, who's going to staff it, who's going to be responsible for it, the liabilities? Also, there aren't really enough Office of Public Safety to be able to go and take care of the existing problems at the parks. I also wanted to talk about the city clerk doing the NC elections, in that, again, how can the city determine that the NCs are not going to be able to do their own elections without the input from the neighborhood councils? They have yet to let them know that the city clerk might be doing the election, and I would also like to know. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brewer, and thank you for pointing out that with the agendas. We'll see if we can get a hold of that. And Mr. Labange, she referred to item number 21. We voted on that. Did you want to reconsider that? That was the joint use schools and parks, item 21.
President,
I know we had spoken about that. Did you want to take that up today, or was the vote okay on item 21? That was the joint use between parks and schools?
No, I want to put it together.
So you want to reconsider that?
I believe so.
Okay. It had not been called special, so I want to...
Thank you.
Why don't you take a moment and just let me know if you do want to reconsider that. Ms. Brewer will be happy to take your comments at that time. Our next speaker is John Wellborn. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. President, members of the council. I'm John Wellborn, and I'm a former board member of Los Angeles Beautiful, and I am the current president of Scenic California, and I am here to speak very briefly on beautification issues for this wonderful, beautiful city of Los Angeles. I am particularly here to ask the council and your staffs to pay careful attention to an item that will be coming to the Planning Commission on January 10th. and back to the council scheduled for February 12th. It was item 8 on today's agenda. And we think that a wonderful opportunity for Los Angeles is to have the South Los Angeles Wetlands Park. It's a great opportunity for that neighborhood and for the city generally. And we urge the council to work in all ways of finding funding for that park.
Ms. Perry?
But I did ask for that item to be continued, and so we're not hearing that item today. I just discussed that with Mr. Wellborn, and he is attempting to comment on an item that I asked to be continued, which was agendized today, but continued already by council vote.
Mr. City Attorney, in terms of looking at an item that is on the agenda during general public comment, is that out of order?
If the speaker is speaking on an item that has been agendized and that item has been continued, council can request that the speaker refrain from speaking on that topic.
Okay. Could you make your comments of a general nature?
Right. All right. Well, the only
that.
reason I actually put in a public comment card was because I heard the matter had been continued. So I just urge the council to very carefully study this when it comes up, especially because of the billboard aspect of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wellborn. We appreciate those comments. We'll next go back out to Van Nuys, and Donna Pearman is our next speaker, and Miriam Fogler will follow. Good morning.
Yeah. Hi. I'm Donna Pearman. The council member Wendy Gruhl did a good job as president. I miss seeing Councilman Eric Garcetti. First, congratulations to Lake Balboa's Birmingham Patriots. I went to Birmingham High. As I was saying yesterday, let's take money from the CRA. If you're right about them, they would love to help us out from our deficit. I don't think so, so make them. I want you to refuse your future raise until you save money for the city. I know it's hard to do it in a fair way. I realize your job is hard and probably work many hours we public don't see, especially with closed session items. But your raise shouldn't be higher than other city employees. Your base pay is higher. That's enough. Also, no more condo conversions. People are being ruined. Make them move from friends, family, work, school, hard to find another place, and having to take what they can find. Also, apartment owners can have expensive units. It's not right. It's not fair. We need to stop robbing the lower and the middle class. They don't have it. I know I don't. I have an idea. Let's take it from the city council. I miss Zuma Dog and his fight about the Grand Avenue project. I do not trust the subway to the sea. Will it take it from the MTA? I rely on them to get to work. The Blue Bus Santa Monica doesn't run early enough, and our rush hour buses are anything but. The city council tells the people to take the transit. That's impossible for some disabled people to take the bus. First, many stops don't have benches. They would have to stand or sit on the sidewalk like me. Some buses are very overcrowded, like the 720 Santa Monica. And, yeah, she can't walk. Some disabled would be passed over for seats. A disaster in the making. Believe me, some people just can't take it. People will not get out of their cars. Let's take it better for everyone. You won't give up your cars. And Garcetti was electric car. We won't either. We won't give up our cars. Thank you.
Thank you. Miriam Fogler is our next speaker.
I just got a boot over here from someplace that I like very much. One of the businesses, they told me I can't park there. And there's city trucks, city vehicles sitting parking here on meters, and I'm disabled. And I can't walk far, and that's going to be very bad for me. And there should be public parking available for free for the disabled, and not to be told that you have to take public transit like the able-bodied people who can walk a long distance and able to stand. So there's a lot of discrimination going on here with the disabled here. You haven't, the lift here doesn't even work. I mean, and the paper holder in the bathroom, in the women's bathroom on the second floor doesn't work. It opens and doesn't stay. It doesn't stay up. It's broken. See, people need to be hiring the people you need to be paying here, and stop trying to cut corners so that you can give money to the CRA and not to have enough essential services here for the needy and for the people who live here in the city. So, as I was saying, she also told me that these vehicles that you're on number 16 that was talking about the You know what? Energy saving vehicles, you want to give them free parking, and people who have those cars that my brother has one of those cars that use he has the Prius, and he already can drive the Diamond Lane with his little thing on the car, and it's not right to give them preferential parking when it's hard for disabled people to find parking. So that's wrong, and they should be doing the same thing as everybody else because they could walk. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vogler. Our next speaker is Matt Dowd. Mr. Dowd, would you like to speak? Okay, going once. Mr. Dowd? And I would ask you if you would be kind enough to move your face mask so people can see who you are, Mr. Dowd.
Okay, first of all, fuck you, Eric Garcetti, for...
Mr. Dowd, that is out of order and that is disruptive. If I can please ask the guards, that was disruptive. I was very respectful, sir. Please cut off his microphone. If I can, I was very respectful. That is out of line. We have warned you a number of times.
That is his warning.
That is a warning. Every speaker gets one warning. I would ask you to please civilly address all of us here. That is the tone we take with you, and we would ask the same from you. And I was asking you very nicely if you would remove your mask so that we could see in the public. Public comment is about hearing the public and knowing who is giving the speech.
Shut up and let me have...
All right, that's the second warning. That's it. I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr. Dowd. You have lost the right to speak today. That is the end of public comment for today. If we can go to the items called special, Madam Clerk.
First item called special, Mr. President, is item number 5, and that was called special by Councilmember Labange.
Also, Mr. Labange wanted to reconsider 21, if we could do that first.
Yeah, and ask the city clerk to combine 21 and 5 together.
Let's open the roll on
easy.
reconsideration of 21.
7 and 21, excuse me.
Close the roll and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
And we'll connect those, Mr. Labange, when 7 comes up. But right now we have item number 5.
5, good very much. And if I could ask this department staff for item number 5 to join at the center table. And members, Mr. President, I ask for a 10-minute max public hearing from both sides. I believe you received cards from citizens who've come down to speak to this issue here. Like they asked the department to give a brief synopsis of what is before us. There was a letter circulated explaining what is proposed at Runyon Canyon, which is one of the most loved public spaces in the city of Los Angeles. And Mr. President, if we can have, there's a lot of talk.
I can ask folks to kind of please take their conversations either outside of, and if we can ask the Sergeant at Arms to help us with being able to hear. You'd like the presentation from the staff first?
Exactly. Okay. And on this here, one of the great love of Runyon Canyon and its space is that there is an off-leash dog park. And in the law, it says you have to have parking off the street for off-leash dog park. And I want to make sure we preserve an off-leash dog park for all of Los Angeles and this region of the city of Los Angeles. So, Mr. Singh, if you could, for the department and others, address briefly what we have proposed before us. Thank you.
Sure. Good morning, President and members of the Council. My name is Paul Singh. I'm with the Bureau of Engineering. This proposed project at Runyon Canyon involves relocation of an existing lawn area further up north and the construction of a new environmentally friendly permeable parking lot right off the Fuller Avenue entrance of the park. And the proposed project is also consistent with the Runyon Canyon Master Plan and Design Guideline, as well as in compliance with the off-leash dog park exercise area policy and guideline. Both documents are adopted by the Board of Recreation and Park Commissioners. And under the provision of CEQA, a mitigated negative declaration was prepared and adopted by the Board of Recreation and Park Commissioners. However, this board action is being appealed, and staff recognized that there is an item, which is the noise generated during construction, that could be potentially have some impact, and therefore staff is recommending the Council accepts this appeal and direct staff to revise and recirculate the M&D in order to provide measures to mitigate construction noise. And if directed by Council, the revised draft MND is expected to be recirculated and released for a 30-day public comment period starting in mid-January. Thank you.
So, Mr. President, they call those who are opposed to the improvement of the public parking space at Runyon Canyon, call their names if you want to line up, because you're all right there. There's no public hearing required, but I asked for a public hearing because you came down.
Thank you, Mr. Labange. There's 4 opposed. Joanne Dendau,
right.
Joyce Bremen, Elaine Busler, and the others.
And the attorney.
The others are for the proposal. So in that order, if you please go ahead and proceed.
Thank Joanne wants to be recognized. She's not going to speak. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, members of the council. My name is Daniel Wright of the Silverstein Law Firm, 215 North Marengo, Pasadena, California, 91101. Our client is new friends of Runyon Canyon. It was our organization that brought attention to the issues of the inadequacy of the mitigated negative declaration that was prepared by staff in this case. They have identified only the issue of construction noise. We would contend that having decided to recirculate the MND, that staff comply with CEQA and examine all issues relevant for an appropriate mitigated negative dec. In fact, the issues are so extreme in some cases, we think you should consider an EIR. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Joyce Bryman. To respond to Tom's comment that the guidelines require a parking lot, I don't think that's correct, Tom. They recommend a parking lot, but they don't require it. And I would remind you that over 375 people responded to the EIR, to the mitigated negative declaration requesting a full EIR. And as you know from the over 3,500 signatures on 2 petitions and the numerous groups that oppose the parking lot, only Tom Labange and a very, very few other people want this parking lot. I really would ask the council members to reconsider this issue altogether, because many of those people who signed the petitions were their constituents. People who go to Runyon live in their district. And the Department of Transportation's field study said that people who go to Runyon are willing to walk a quarter of a mile to get to the park. So they neither want nor need this parking lot. And lastly, it's funded with Proposition A funds, which specifically seeks to control gangs and protect wildlife. Many people believe that the parking lot will do just the opposite, attracting gangs at night, and already we know that it will kill wildlife. So I think it is an improper use of funds, and you should reconsider your vote on that. And Proposition K says that the funds must have community support, and obviously this does not have community support. So please put this item back on the table and vote against the parking lot.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hi, Elaine Bushler. I didn't know it was televised, and I'm in the Writers Guild, so I hope this is cool.
Well, we're not going to pay you for this statement.
Well, then I'm a real writer.
Okay.
Tom Labange wants to push through this parking lot despite the opposition of his own Park Advisory Board, the Hollywood Hills West Neighborhood Council, Outpost Estates homeowners, and a petition with 3,500 signatures against. He says the park is 23,000 acres, but it is all mountainous canyons, and there is only 1/2 acre that's usable by everyone. This one accessible flat area used by people who cannot hike miles uphill is an oasis for old people, the disabled, children, and families. The space Labange suggests as a substitute requires a long uphill climb, as does an old tennis court he likes to reference as well. There is one spot that everybody can enjoy, and this council is considering paving it Why? 3,500 people so far, plus all these organizations, signed up against this parking lot, yet Mr. Labange wants to restrict a major part of our population from having access to parkland in order to please a number of homeowners lucky enough to live near a public park. So who does Tom Labange represent? And P.S., we have off-street parking for the dog park as required. There's a brand new off-street parking lot on Mulholland. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And we have Joyce Bremen. Did Joyce speak?
Yes.
Is she here? She spoke? Okay. And now we have Leah French, and that's the last one we have. That's fill out a card.
Fill out a card against the proposal. Everybody who filled out a card against the proposal exercised their right. Anyone who wanted to speak for the proposal, exercise your right by filling out a card and being called by the President of the Council.
How long do I have to speak? When do I begin?
Go ahead.
My name is Lee French. I represent the Hillside Vista Association. I represent the people on North Hillside, South Hillside. I represent the neighbors in the area. I've listened to everybody, and we have been dealing with this incredible open space for probably 20 years now. The area is absolutely rife with dog urine and feces and parking and cars being hit, dogs being killed, people being bitten. My neighbor's dog was killed by a pit bull. I've been sent to the emergency room from being bitten in the face by a dog when I was trying to separate them. We rescued dumped dogs. The only solution, and it's the beginning of the solution, is to approve this parking lot and to bring this park into some kind of clear, concise management like all of the other parks are in this area. Our stance is that the city has an unmet obligation as set forth in the Parks Master Plan in 1986 to address neighborhood concerns about parking, traffic, and noise caused by the facility. We absolutely applaud Tom Labange. It has taken too long, and there's been too many things put in his way. There is a small amount of parking, but it's on the entire other side of Mulholland. We have no relief from this problem. I have probably 3,000 dogs a weekend peeing on my house, defecating. I'm cleaning up at least 30 feces a week in front of my house, as is all of the other neighbors on this street. The noise begins at 6:30 in the morning when people are going up these streets and people are coming out of the park at the dark. The only way to manage this park is to have clear entrances, clear exits, and have these dogs, which are marauding in the neighborhood. They're not on leash. And yes, 80% of dog people are wonderful, good people. They manage their dogs. It's the other 20%. And all of the people that dog walk as a business are now trying to get these dogs up 10 at a time. I beg you, please help us. I beg you, please put this parking lot in, and please manage this incredible open space.
Thank you.
Beg you.
Councilmember Cardenas. Ma'am, your time's up. Thank you. Councilmember Cardenas.
Did you fill the card out?
Councilmember Cardenas.
Thank you.
I have no more cards, Mr. Labange. Councilmember Cardenas is up.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I want to ask the staff if they could clarify, where do people park today if they're going to visit this open space, this park?
People will park on the streets if they drove to the park.
So if somebody drives to utilize this space, this park, they park on the streets?
That is correct.
Are we aware of any complaints about the parking on the streets or from the neighboring community?
We understand there is always a shortage of parking on the street, knowing that there are multi-family residential in the area. And so there's definitely a shortage of street parking.
Then I'll ask Mr. Labange. I was asking the question of the staff, are we aware of any complaints about the fact that people are parking on the streets and maybe congestion, things of that nature?
Certainly there's those complaints, but here's the situation, Mr. Cardenas. If this park was built today, like the Great Rio Park on San Fernando Road, there would be a parking requirement.
Before opening.
Before opening. And if this park was built today, under the direction of John Muckery and Mike Scholl and this team right here, there would be a permeable soil, decomposed granite parking space and I love Joni Mitchell and, Pave Paradise put up a parking lot. I'm not putting up a parking lot. I'm making a space for people to enjoy this park and have access. And it's true, members, and Mr. Kardash, you bring up good points, and I thank you. All of our constituents use this park, from the San Fernando Valley to West Los Angeles, Central Los Angeles.
Thank you. So there are concerns of many factions when it comes to the parking, and one of the concerns today is that people are parking on the street. A constituent came up and talked about, pedestrians being in danger and dogs, because people seem to be bringing their dogs to the park as well. Is this proposal include actually taking someone's land or annexing more land to build the parking lot, or are we talking about using the already designated open space and using some of that designated land for parking?
Yeah, the project site will be entirely within the already designated parkland open space. It's all part of the Runyon Canyon property.
Okay, so we're talking about a parking lot that would be placed on the existing facility. We're not annexing another piece of land. We're not eminent domaining. We're not doing anything like that. We're actually using the existing facility to build a parking.
Right. Everything's within city property.
Okay. Now, when it comes to the parking, are we trying to fulfill a responsibility that perhaps we overlooked some time ago when we created this open space and said, here's your open space, community, use it?
Perhaps there are two guidelines that we're following. One is there's a master plan that was prepared and adopted in 1986, and in that master plan it envisioned a on-site parking lot.
Okay.
So it's recognizing the need for that, and also there is a off-leash dog park policy and guideline for citywide dog park. And it also recommends that off-site parking be provided for every dog park.
Okay. Well, to me, it looks like Tom's trying to do the responsible thing. Obviously, not popular with everybody, but you're absolutely right, Tom. You're trying to bring the park to the proper standard that we should have all parks, and that is to facilitate the issue of parking, whether people like it or not. Angelinos love their cars. That's just a fact. Right now, it seems to be impeding on the community as a whole. And the fact of the matter is, we probably opened the park too soon, so be it, but now you have to correct it. So thank you, Tom, for standing up, for trying to do what's right, even though it might not be popular. Thank you.
Mr. Labange, we have some other cards that came in on this matter. Would you like to have those folks here?
I think there was 3 minutes left in the public hearing.
Okay,
What's that, Madam Clerk?
There was Mr. Weiss.
I'll be brief. My name is Michael Wise. I'm with the law firm of Perkins & Coie. I'm appearing on behalf of myself as a citizen that lives south of the park on Camino Palmero, and I empathize with my neighbors on Vista who are directly impacted by the park. The situation is very difficult. I think there's two comments I want to make. The first one is parks have parking lots. Inner city parks, national parks, all have parking lots. We have none for Runyon Canyon. It's a major problem. My second observation is I moved to the area in 2001, and when I did, we used to have deer on our street. We used to hear the coyotes at night every night. Runyon Canyon needs some control. There is an infinite number of people and dogs coming up to Runyon Canyon, and the habitat is being destroyed by the people and the dogs. And the city needs to take responsibility for this park if we want to have wildlife in the park. And maybe we make a decision as a city that the dogs and the people are more important than the wildlife in the park. But the city needs to regulate this and do something about the problem in Runyon, because the habitat is being destroyed and the animals are disappearing. So the city needs to pay more attention to this. Do I think that a parking lot is going to make a difference in the sense of the habitat? No, I don't, because I think the bigger issue in terms of destruction of habitat is not putting a parking lot in Runyon Canyon, but the number of people and dogs that are off leash running around the park and destroying the habitat. I urge the city to do something. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt Dowd, next speaker. Followed by Vincent Procado and Candace Harding.
First of all, I'm not Matt Dowd, but I do have a card and I didn't hear my name being called, so I'll wait for that card to be called. Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
Good morning. My name is Vince Mercado, and I live near the park entrance on Vista Street. I am in favor of the parking lot, based on the fact that any new park today would require a parking lot in order to lighten the amount of congestion in the residential areas surrounding the park. As cars drive up Vista Street to get to their respective homes, people going to the park continue to jeopardize their lives and march up and down the middle of the streets with their headsets on where they cannot hear any oncoming automobiles. This is a clear safety hazard. One argument by the anti-park people is that 80 parking spaces will not help. Well, this is not true when you consider that often people take a friend or two to the park. This would mean possibly 2 or 3 people to a car, possibly 2 or 3 dogs to a car. This equates to approximately 240 people and 200 dogs. This would really reduce the amount of congestion, traffic, altercations in the parking areas surrounding the park. Please stop your procrastination and build this parking lot. It's been deferred for much too long. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And our final speaker.
Hello, my name is Candace Harding. I'm representing the Hillside Vista Homeowners Association. These hundreds and hundreds of signatures were collected in one day on one weekend of people that wanted to be able to park in the park. Because of the no parking lot in the southern entrance to the park, the dogs get out of their cars, and they aren't on leashes. They defecate and urinate in the neighborhood. The parking lot would put the dogs within the confines of the park, where they belong. It would also put the hikers getting out of their cars with their trash, their water bottles, within the park, where they belong. This has been a health hazard. We've had our dog killed by hikers' dogs. We've been attacked. We've had our cars smashed. It's a nightmare living with this kind of congestion and traffic where there's no parking lot, where there should be. It's in the master plan. Our neighborhood voted to make this a park. The contingencies were it was to be a neighborhood park. They now advertise it on the internet. People drive hours to get there. And at the committee meeting, one of the hikers said, well, if you put a parking lot there, it's going to draw more people and be a worse problem. So what, they only want to make it for themselves, that they don't want other people coming to the park? The parking lot should facilitate the hikers. There's a 20-minute turnover to 40-minute max of hikers there. Because I know they park where it says no parking, and when I go, you'll get a ticket there, they go, no, we're only here for 20 minutes. Parking won't come during that time. And they will risk getting a parking ticket because they just want to hike and be close to an entrance. So they need to put in the parking lot that we were promised by Mr. Ferraro years ago when we instituted this park. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Mr. Labange.
Thank you. I think the staff explained the situation, what is there. There's a diagram. This is a permeable soil parking space similar to what was done at Rio State Park, which is under the jurisdiction of LA Reckitt Parks. And I ask you for your support. As mentioned by one of the speakers, this has been going on since Peggy Stevenson fought for this and acquired it for the city and the old estate there. And then Mr. Wu had it for a period of time, and then Mr. Ferraro for many years. The master plan was developed, it was called for. All I'm trying to do, as Mr. Carter said, make sure that it complies with the policies, directives, and laws of the city of Los Angeles. And I will do the right thing. I love open space. I love Runyon Canyon. I ask for an aye vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Labange. That concludes the discussion on the matter. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Matter passes. Next item, please.
Next item is item number 7, and that was called special by Council Member Labange, and there is a request to take up item number 21 with this item.
Council Member Hahn.
Thank you. I think it's Councilman Labange, and I ask you, hold this on the desk for a moment. I want to thank both parties for coming down for the last item.
Number 7, Mr. Labange?
7. Hold number 7 for a moment.
And Mr. Labange, and 21 as well?
Mr. Labange, 21 also? Madam Clerk will hold 7 and 21. We have a number of cards on number 7. A number of cards on 7. Okay, our next matter then.
Next
Hold
item
those
is
on the desk.
item number 16, and that was called special by Councilmember Gruhl.
Councilmember Gruhl, number 16. We have a card on that from Sharon Brewer, also in the Valley.
As a public hearing's been held, I believe, on that item. Is that true? Okay. Colleagues, the item before you today is on, you may recall, we provide free parking. I know Mr. Garcetti is another advocate and may have even been, were you the impetus for this? You were. Okay. Then I will be brief and let you talk, just to let you know what we did in council. But Mr. Garcetti, who led this effort, which was to encourage hybrids and do different things. So you have an HOV lane, you have free parking at our meters. I'm sorry, free parking in our meters for hybrid vehicles. A lot has changed since its inception, and so part of what the City of Los Angeles wanted to do was always be consistent with the state of California. And so we wanted to make sure that we were providing the same continued support for the fuel-efficient vehicles. It will come back, ultimately, the ordinance. This is kind of directing the department and the city attorney to come back with the actual ordinance, but it will parallel the state's rules with the new stickers. And so only those cars that have those stickers, because our DOT officers that are out there, were having to differentiate between which ones, which hybrids. Now we have a variety of kinds of hybrids, and so we wanted to make it consistent with the state. And it will also follow the same timeline as the state, which is in 2011. I also, I don't know if the department is here, but we wanted to make sure that there was outreach, because some people may not know the change, and it would really be horrible. Someone went out and actually had their vehicle, had been used to getting a free meter, and all of a sudden got a ticket. And so we need to make sure there's an implementation period. And I don't know if the department, Alan, is here. And then again, I want to give it to Mr. Garcetti, who, if you would just come up to the table and talk about the outreach you're going to do to educate the public, so we can ensure that we have an opportunity for them to learn about the change that's going to take place.
Good morning, Alan Willis from the Department of Transportation. Yes, what the plan that we have that we are going to follow for the public outreach is to, as soon as this ordinance is adopted and we have a firm effective date, now that's usually going to give us anywhere from 30 to 45 days advance notice, we will immediately update the city service directory, which is the 311 website, which has already information about this program. So we'll provide that information on the website, telling when this change takes effect and getting that word out. We'll also be contacting all of the hybrid websites nationwide that we've been dealing with over the last several years that publicize various incentive programs in different states and cities. And so we'll make sure that they're updated too. That information will go so that we get at least 30 days advance notice out to the public of these changes taking effect, exactly a date certain of when they will take effect. And then the other thing that's also in this report before you is once the ordinance takes effect, our officers are also directed to only issue warning notices to any vehicles that are found parking at these meters without a decal for the first 30 days after the ordinance takes effect. So that'll be another way of letting the people that have been participating for several years in this program but don't have the clean air vehicle decals that the program has changed and now they're required to have the decal in order to participate.
Thank you very much, Alan, and thank you, Mr. Garcetti, for your leadership on this. And this was a tough issue to try to figure out, because we'd still like to be able to encourage those hybrids, but we think it needs to be focused very clearly on, consistent with the state program that they allow in the HOV lane. So thank you to the department. Colleagues, we hope that you will also use your mechanisms that you have within your offices to educate the public, whether it be through your website or through community meetings. We should work with the neighborhood councils as well to get that information out. I think that's going to be critical to educate the public, but we want to continue to support the purchasing of hybrid vehicles in the city of Los Angeles. So, again, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
A technical question. You're stating that they have to have the decal. The state is no longer issuing decals. So the only ones that will be permitted are the ones that have a decal and purchase a new car. They will not be permitted to park for free.
That is correct.
Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And first down, let me thank the Department of Transportation, especially our officers, because we often pass things in here that seem easy, and I know the implementation is always tougher. And so for our drivers who say, I know I can park for free, and they get a ticket, and then a traffic officer who's asking, well, what's the difference between this car and that car, because it doesn't always say hybrid. We understand there's been a lot of good work out there, and we really appreciate this. The history is actually not even my own, Ms. Gruhl. It started with Mr. Padilla with electric vehicles, exempted them from having to pay at a time when California was moving towards more of an electric vehicle future. Unfortunately, the car companies have rolled that back, but we'll look at that another time. And that exemption of those electric vehicles that still exist, I think, is very important because it's a way to try to reduce the pollution that we have, reduce the impact in global warming, and to incentivize a more green way of getting around. The hybrid vehicles were similar. And I think it's done a great job. I was happy to introduce the hybrid one, building on what Mr. Padilla had done with electric vehicles, and to reintroduce it a couple years ago. And I understand that it's important to narrow that, because if we're talking about the impact of global warming, we've got hybrid vehicles that have higher gas mileage than non-hybrid vehicles that are, just smaller cars. And so when we've looked at that, obviously the state has recognized that certain cars that really do have that impact on the environment can go in carpool lanes and get that decal. And we're trying to make this close to that as well. What is the date that the state has sunsetting for the decal program as of now for carpools?
It's now set at January 1st, 2011, or unless the state law is repealed earlier.
Or extended.
Well,
I mean, it can be extended, right?
They could always have the option of coming back.
But it sunsets then with a revisiting in 2011. And the idea is to get us past critical mass. So it's not to, one day if everybody's driving hybrids, there won't be any free parking, unfortunately. But that's a good thing, because we will have gotten to a place where people are actually reducing the amount of oil that they consume, the amount of gasoline they put in their cars, correct?
Correct.
And in terms of the survey that was done, how many vehicles fell outside of, even percentage-wise, those that had decals on them but were still hybrids parking today for free? Do you know?
When we did our survey, we saw, and this was in January 2007, we saw approximately 500 hybrids parked, individual, unique hybrids, if you will, parked on a given day. About 40% of them did not have decals, 60% did. So about 300 of those 500 had decals.
And one final question. Have you given consideration, and I know Ms. Gruhl, kind of helped lead the charge with this, but in committee about whether or not cars that still have very high gas mileage, ones that would have been eligible for the stickers, essentially like people who are buying a Prius today or buying one of the Accords, not the Accords, the lesser Honda, what's the...
Civic.
The Civic, thank you. Civic hybrid. The cheaper, not the lesser. We love the Civic. Many of us drive it. The Civic, is there a way for us to be looking at a similar sort of indicator or sticker? Because if the policy end is to try to achieve that, those cars are doing that, and it's just a matter of, it's not going to be incentivizing anybody new to buy those cars necessarily, if that indeed has been one of the incentives.
Well, we considered that. We didn't recommend anything like that because we're really not set up to undertake that kind of administrative burden of issuing essentially our own city decals for those vehicles. It also, when we were putting together our report, our concern was eventually the revenue impact to the city also. And one side benefit of tying to the state program is that it also sort of limits our revenue exposure. In other words, there's only 85,000 vehicles at this time that can have those decals, and so there'll never be at this time any more than 85,000 vehicles that have the ability to park for free in the city of LA. at the meters.
Okay. Well, that's something I'd like to do some thinking about. I don't want to hold this up, and I recognize, we don't want to put another, in a tight budget year, bureaucratic requirement of issuing stickers, but I do think we'll obviously get a lot of feedback from people saying, part of this is to incentivize. All you're doing is rewarding that already exists. And we want people to keep those hybrids out there, but I think part of that initial, certainly when I introduced this years ago, it was to incentivize people to get new ones and to get more people into hybrids, and we may be missing some of that with this, so we need to think through whether the state can be a partner or whether somebody else can be a partner to identify those easily for our traffic officers and continue to get more people into cars that have higher gas mileage. So but I'll do some thinking with you behind the scenes and see what we can do for that. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Garcetti. Anything else from the staff? Nothing else? Okay, let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 eyes.
Thank you. That matter passes. The next item, please.
Next item is item number 20, and that was called special by Councilmember Hahn.
Number 20. Tom, Mr. Labange, we'll go to you after Ms. Hahn. You were on the table. Ms. Hahn, you're on to number 20.
I got 7. It's okay. I asked him something he couldn't do. I don't know.
Ms. Hahn, go ahead and then we'll finish this. There's a number of speakers on number 7.
Okay, thank you. Well, let's do this.
This is going to be a long time.
No, mine's going to be quick. Colleagues, I just wanted to bring this to our attention. This is 20. This is, okay, one of the things I wanted to ask, we can make this very quickly, is about the Inspector General concept for the fire department. It's something I brought forward earlier, and while we're talking about professional standards, I think in light of everything and with your new leadership and direction, it makes sense that we move forward quickly on the idea of an Inspector General for the fire department. Love to hear your comments about that and where it is in the process.
Member, for the past several weeks, there's a work group that has been comprised by the mayor's office to review the proposal of the Professional Standards Division that the fire department put forward. The purpose of that work group was to look at the job classifications, make sure it addresses all the issues that need to be addressed. Part of that proposal is an oversight function similar to the Inspector General. The actual position was discussed in that group, and there will be an oversight function that reports to the Commission outside the fire department chain of command. That proposal should be coming forward. I'm hopeful in the next few weeks. I'm very anxious to get the whole process moving forward. Matter of fact, I have a meeting today, and I think we're real close to just wrapping it all up and be able to move it to the council.
And you support that idea?
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you. That's all I wanted to say. See how quick that was.
Chief, what else do you have to say?
That's all.
Okay. Ms. Gruhl.
Thank you, and I will be brief. I'm very pleased at the progress under your leadership that you've made on this particular issue, because as we looked at it through Mr. Wiesar's committee and some of the joint meetings that we held before you were chief, there were a lot of concerns raised as to not only the support needed to employees, but also a consistent practice and not just a kind of depending upon who was in the position. And so I think this is a good step forward in ensuring to both employees and to the public, because we've seen clearly so many legal challenges to some of the actions taken by the department, that this will help us along the way. And so I just wanted to stand up and compliment the department, because I know that you take this very, very seriously and are moving forward on it. And this is a good first step, and that hopefully you will continue to keep us in the loop as to your progress, where there are bumps in the road, that we as a city council can assist you in that way.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
All right.
President.
Thank you. The matter is now before us. Mr. Wiesar?
Thank you very much. One final question. We did hear this item in Audit Committee. I want to thank you, Chief, because I think the conversation we had with your presence was a very different one than we had in the past. When we first heard similar items such as this, there was so much tension in the room, couldn't really get answers, but we appreciate your leadership that you're providing to move items like this forward and be a bit more transparent about what's happening, be practical, and move forward with the things we have to do. So we appreciate your leadership there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Chief, all the comments from your firefighters, you're doing a great job.
Thank you very much.
So this matter is now before us. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 eyes.
Thank you. Mr. Labange, you want number 7 now? Madam Clerk, can we go back to number 7 for Mr. Labange?
Thank you very much. I'd like to ask Deputy Mayor Espinoza from the Mayor's Office, Mike Scholl from Recreation and Parks, Paul Escala from the LA Unified to go to the center table, as well as Amy Cooper from the School Board President's Office, Monica Garcia, LA Unified. All of us, and I thank Mr. Alarcon, Chairman of the Neighborhoods Committee, as well. All of us have a strong feeling for joint use. And finally, we are making the steps to come forward with a process for joint use. Joint use is a master agreement between the City of Los Angeles and the Unified Schools. Working with Mayor Villaraigosa, who has a very high priority of this, and all of us who have a high priority with this, is we will set a policy to assist to put a framework together to have this joint use agreement. But it doesn't happen because great professionals are sitting around a table. It happens because great park professionals and advocates are sitting in this room who are going to speak to it in a minute. If I could ask the Deputy Mayor to speak first, and then I'll be brief in their points as we go forward and ask for a quick 5-minute public hearing on this. And I also want to thank again Mr. Alarcon for his help on this. Thank you.
Mr. Labange, there's 12 public speaker cards. Do you want to take those after we hear from
After
the
the professionals first from our table, the professionals, advocates afterwards.
Oh, there you go.
Thank you.
Professionals.
Thank you, Councilman. My name is Chris Espinosa with the Mayor's Office. Would like to just let you know that over the last 2 years, we've been working really strongly with LAUSD, and that relationship has gotten better and better. We have at least 20 to 25 new projects, and we've been getting great support from the council offices. So with your specific motion, we support it 100%. We've already directed the City Attorney's Office or requested the City Attorney's Office and directed the Department of Recreation and Parks to enter into a master joint use agreement, not only for joint use citywide, but master aquatics agreement, which will make a significant capital improvements into our existing pools and new pools. We just wish to do more joint use. It's in the benefit of the city and the school district and for our kids. And so we thank you very much for your support. Michael Scholl could go over all the details of our work.
Good morning, council members. Mike Scholl with the Department of Recreation and Parks. As Chris Espinosa was just stating, we have formed a very strong relationship with LAUSD and vastly expanded the list of joint use opportunities across the city. Rec and Park strongly supports a master JUA and the concept of greening schools. Rec and Parks currently operates over 400 parks in the city on over 16,000 acres, and we have a plan to add 50 parks, increasing the acreage to over 17,000 acres by the year 2011. We know that we need to do more, and we feel that joint use is one way to do that. Today we have 30 formal joint use agreements with LAUSD, and we have 17 that we're working on that we're calling pending. We've collaborated with LAUSD on a weekly basis over the past year to brainstorm ideas, to streamline the process, and to increase the number of opportunities that we have. Some of the major developments that Chris touched on was we're now involved in the early stages of planning some of the new schools. LAUSD has been a great partner in that and bringing us on to help form these new schools, to connect them to existing parks, as well as make them more public open spaces. That means and does a lot. It decreases the amount of liability to both of our organizations and actually decreases the cost to our organizations in the long run to operate these joint use facilities. That's a major step. We've drafted a master aquatics agreement with LAUSD, and we are tentatively scheduled to take that master aquatics agreement to the Board of Recreation and Parks Commissioners on January 23rd. That is another major stepping stone, as that will add funding to do repairs on these facilities, as pools require extensive maintenance. We're in the final stages of drafting a master JUA. The document is currently being reviewed by LAUSD Legal Counsel, and the moment that it is forward to us, we will begin our process of review and send it forthwith to our Board of Recreation and Parks Commissioners to adopt that as well. We have funding identified in the unappropriated balance of the city's budget to fund 3 joint use opportunities. I wanted to touch a little bit on each one of those. Miguel Contreras. We've now got a program set for next summer for a swim program, which will serve 125 youths per day at that facility, where they'll learn how to swim and also to do a junior lifeguard training program. That junior lifeguard training program proliferates, it spawns additional opportunities for those youth because we may be able to hire those youth now during our own lifeguarding at other pools. Vista Hermosa, we're partnering with the Land Trust and LAUSD to provide staffing for youth soccer programs. West Adams Prep, we're looking at weekend and summer programs for youth soccer and basketball with use of the gymnasium and track and field there. So those are additional opportunities that we do have funding for that we hope to start implementing next summer. That's in addition to what we are already doing. Regarding the greening of the schools, we definitely want to participate in that, and we definitely support the People for Parks efforts and LAUSD efforts to make that happen. I believe LAUSD is going to speak a little bit more on that issue, and we hope to work with the mayor's office in regards to the greening of schools to bring trees and whatever other resources we can to those school sites under the Million Tree Program. Thank you.
And from LA Unified, Mr. Scala.
Yes. Paula Scala, Director for Joint Use Development, LA Unified. I just want to thank the council for allowing a LAUSD representative here this morning. I think that the fact that I'm here today speaking before the council is a direct result from the cooperation and partnership that we've developed recently. I want to thank specifically Councilman Labange, Huizar, Han, and Aragon for sponsoring what is, I think, another example of an opportunity to expand community use of schools, to green schools, and to really create schools as a center of community. It goes without saying that this is a concept that is really necessary in a large major urban setting like Los Angeles, and many other cities have done it nationwide. Staff has really been working closely. Staff on both agencies are working closely to overcome challenges that have existed for many, many years. And I think that a new attitude and a new direction and an investment from both sides have allowed that participation to happen. And if I just could just tell you, you know, in a world where we're in a world of limited resources, you know, the Board of Education, the Council, and the Mayor's Office have pulled together the resources possible to develop new projects. LAUSD has committed $60 million in capital bond funds from the last 3 bond measures to promote and encourage joint use development projects. And those projects go from healthcare infrastructures on school sites to artificial turf, to aquatic facilities, and beyond. Youth centers like the Markham Middle School project in Councilwoman Han's district, where the Boys and Girls Club has a club on the Markham Middle School campus, as an example of working with nonprofit community-based organizations. And the city attorney's office participating with us on that as well. Since this program started in early 2006, we've seen a 37% growth in joint use development at LAUSD, 19 joint use projects, $29 million in partner contributions, much of that coming from the city of Los Angeles. At the end of the program, LAUSD will be investing $44 million in joint use funding directly with partnering with the city of Los Angeles. And those are capital projects where the city is leveraging their programmatic resources and their assets to leverage with our capital dollars to create more joint use facilities on school sites. We're leveraging everything beyond capital. We're leveraging maintenance and operations, liability, staffing. We're looking at all these different components as contributions and not just technicalities. They're real, they're happening, and we are looking forward to doing more. As it relates to the community parks effort, we've been working with People for Parks in the city for over a year and developing ways and means of making this happen. And to be quite honest with you, it always comes down to funding. Recently, People for Parks has made an awful lot of progress in that funding component, and we want to thank them for that. The school district is prepared to proceed with a memorandum of understanding to conduct feasibility study, planning, and development for a pilot project on several elementary school sites that are in high-need communities, in park-poor communities, where we can extend hours for use of those playgrounds during the weekend periods and allow Beyond the Bell, our after-school program provider, to facilitate those operations where the city is a partner on the greening component. And I think that is the go-forward plan as it relates to the People for Parks issue. So we're in support of this motion, and we look forward to hearing it over at the Board of Education and looking forward to continuing in this effort.
Paul, thank you very much. I'd like to ask Amy Cooper, the deputy for Monica Garcia, the president of the school board, to speak.
Good morning, Mr. President and council members. It is truly my honor to come before this distinguished body as a representative of Board President Monica Garcia. It feels like home. Ms. Garcia had to be in Sacramento today, but she sends her respects. And the board president would specifically really like to thank the council for your sustained interest and deep commitment to joint use, particularly council members Labange, Alarcon, Huizar, and Hahn for the resolution before you. And thank you specifically for your recognition that the children served by the City of Los Angeles, whether these are the children living in Boyle Heights in Council District 14, the students living in Lincoln Heights in CD1, the students living in San Pedro in CD15, and districts in between. These are the students that are served also by the Los Angeles Unified School District. These are all our kids. It's our shared responsibility to maximize limited public resources to serve them and to give our kids and families the educational and recreational opportunities that they need and, frankly, that they deserve. Ms. Garcia is proud of LAUSD's $60 million joint use program. You've heard some of the details about it from Paul Escala, and we want to thank Paul and his colleagues for the incredible yeoman's job they've done at the district in concert with Chris Espinosa and others here at the city. Much work has been done, but much remains. And we support the resolution before council today. In fact, the board president plans to introduce a complementary resolution at the school board in the coming year that will provide a framework at the district to support our intensive collaboration that's ongoing with the city, People for Parks, and other stakeholders. The board president, as I was headed out to this meeting, she reminded me that her strong interest is in promoting joint use agreements, not that are documents on paper that we can share with the media and circulate with each other, but that are concrete, actionable, responsive to the needs of our students, and above all, sustainable. In close, I'll remind all of us that in an era of limited resources, we have to acknowledge that joint use does require a financial investment. And all of us are challenged to prioritize that investment in the face of competing priorities if we are to take joint use from resolution to a widespread reality.
Well, thank you, Amy. And Mr. President, I'd like to ask, we have some cards. We're going to have a 5-minute public hearing.
We have 3 council members that want to speak. Would you like to hear from the public first or the council?
Okay, let's hear from the public first. It's suggested by the great councilwoman of the 15th, Janice Hahn.
There we go. We'll start with Mr. John Perez. Okay. Welcome to City Council, John.
We're going to run a 1-minute clock to make it easier on everybody.
1 minute. There's 12 cards, so about a minute apiece, please.
Thank you, Council President Zine. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, we want to thank Council members Labange, Hahn, Alarcon, and Huizar for introducing this motion. We also want to thank Board President Monica Garcia and the staff of both the LAUSD and the City of Los Angeles for bringing forth this cooperative effort. We know that it will take the efforts of both the city and the LAUSD to get this program up and running. There's a great need in our city. 80 years ago, Frederick Olmsted, the great architect, said that we should use our schools for double duty. The playground should be used during the day, and on the weekends and vacations, they should be used for the community. This is, thank you, Councilmember Hahn. This is the vision of Mr. Olmsted. This is the vision of People for Parks. As a former teacher, I know the need, and now as a community member, I want to make sure that we have an adequate park space for all of our children. I want to thank everybody in this effort on behalf of People for Parks.
Thank you very much, John. Jack Foley, please.
Good morning, Council President, Council members. I'm Jack Foley. The motion you are discussing today will be a large step towards resolving a citywide crisis. Although all of our Los Angeles has too few neighborhood parks, minority communities have borne an unequal share of this deficit. A beautiful local park, like a high-achieving school, is an asset for the entire community. Our plan will revitalize areas with the greatest needs first, not last. In a moment, several speakers will describe their local vision of the program. I'd like to point out that the CSP's success or failure will turn on whether we can involve these parents and community activists. And I'd like to say that a new paradigm is developing where we're working with Beyond the Bell, Rec and Parks, NGOs, school site councils, and LA's Best to deliver programs at these schools. Our vision for CSP is an ongoing program like New York City's partnership with the public lands. That's my minute, right?
That's it. Go ahead and just finish,
I'm a
please.
professor. I'm used to talking. How about 20 seconds?
All right.
New York is doing a program. They have 5 schools a year. They have 91% of their kids are within walking distance of a park. It gets down to 30% for Los Angeles. We think this should be an ongoing macro program over a period of time, and we need to kind of catch up. We need to do more. 15 is a good start. We'll go to either Washington, we'll go to Sacramento. We're talking to the philanthropic community. We're providing a lot of interest. We're your partners, and we want to see this happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Carlisle Hall, please.
Good morning, members of the council. People for Parks was very pleased to work with many of you on the Proposition A's that brought a huge, almost once-in-a-generation infusion of cash into the public park system, not only in the city of Los Angeles, but throughout all the cities of the county. Now we've turned our attention to this joint use issue, and you can see how joint use is really the issue of the day. It works on so many different levels. You can see all the work that's going into it in the new schools. This motion is really about applying those same lessons and that same efficiency of expenditure of resources into existing schools in the most park-poor neighborhoods. So we applaud you for considering this and look forward to working with you.
Thank you. Mark Williams, please.
Good morning. I'm speaking on behalf of concerned citizens of South Central Los Angeles. Our children desperately need a safer place than our streets to play. And the schools are the best place to get started. But it's important as we put together a partnership between the school district and the city that we understand that community partners, local nonprofit organizations are indispensable to making these things successful. We always run the risk that the Department of Recreation and Parks or even the school district can be perceived by the local community as colonizing it if it's not in partnership with it. You have a great number of people who are ready to volunteer and work hard to make this a reality for our children. So we support this wholeheartedly, and we want to be part of the process. Thank you.
Thank you. Jean Chang.
Hi, Jin Cheng from Korean American Coalition. I've been asked by people for Parks to come here. They didn't even have to ask me. I'm a father of a boy, and as a perspective from a father, I think this is a great idea. From a perspective of a father with a son, I think this is an amazing idea. I had time on numerous different occasions. I had to drive 10, 20 minutes just so that I could take my son for a walk. And it's just not... I think everybody who has children feel the same, that we need parks badly. And if you implement these ideas and these methods to have parks nearby, then I think everybody could benefit. So Korean American Coalition as well as the Korean community supports People for Parks and the council people who supports People for Parks. Thank you.
Thank you. Jason Elias.
Good morning. Jason Elias from SEIU Local 721. We wholeheartedly support this effort. On behalf of 721, represents about 10,000 city workers. SEIU also represents about 40,000 LAUSD workers. This is a no-brainer. From the union's point of view, a master joint use agreement would be crucial to unlocking both the schools and also the potential to bring active recreation to communities that need it most, while also creating economic development in those communities by hiring locally for maintenance, operations, and after-school programming staff. Funding is going to be the tricky part here, and we stand ready to help explore opportunities both at the state and also local level. And I just from 7th grade on, from Mr. Hale's landscape architecture class at Sepulveda Junior High, I've always been in support of joint use. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker is Martha Sanchez.
Good morning, council members. My name is Marta Sanchez, chair of Los Angeles Acorn and chair of the 28th Street School Parents Committee and John Adams Middle School Parents Committee. I came to support the motion, and I'm very I want to thank you everyone for doing possible this effort. We really need green in our school size. First of all, the 28th Street School has been impacted by industrial facilities across the street. Our children are suffering by several illnesses as asthma, cancer and tumors, and you cannot imagine. And our teachers are suffering as well. We really need this effort to make possible to increase the health and the well-being of people. Parents and community members are already participating in after-school programs, but we don't have green spaces for us. We want to provide a recreational experience by adding trees and grass for children and parents to participate. And we have a strong desire to improve the health of children and, of course, their life chances. Thank you for council members for supporting this effort, and I urge you to push forward this as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Jason Insdorf.
Good morning, Mr. President, honorable council members. My name is Jason Insdorf. I represent the City Project. We wholeheartedly support the motion for joint parks and schools. The City Project has long supported such an effort. We see this as an excellent way to optimize scarce public resources and open space, and as a way to get our kids to move more, stay healthy, eat well, and do their best in school. As you probably know, Los Angeles lacks adequate park space, and there are unfair park, school, and health disparities throughout the city. These disparities can be seen by council district and by school district, and the human health implications of the lack of place for physical activity in parks and schools is profound. The levels of childhood obesity are intolerably high throughout Los Angeles, and this effort will certainly give the community a chance to move more and a better chance for physical education in the schools. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Needy Garcia.
Good morning, Council and Honorable President. Northeast Trees is here to support the joint use initiative that is being put forth by Councilman Tom LaBonge, specifically because People for Parks is taking on a creative solution for the needs of open space and collaborating with non-traditional partners. As one of those partners, the city has seen Northeast Tree's successes in working on joint use projects. We hire at-risk youth, which take the burden of the maintenance and operations, and that can be a responsible cost, usually to the city. We have also made improvements in working on projects by collecting a number of grants to reinvest in our city. And our collaboration with People for Parks is integral, and we look forward to your support in the process of creating more places for people.
Thank you. Catherine Stringer.
Hi, good morning. I'm Catherine Stringer. I'm here on behalf of LA's Best After School Enrichment Program and Carla Singer, our President and CEO. We hope to offer a statement that will show a successful example over nearly 2 decades of joint use. Since 1988, LA's Best, an independent nonprofit organization, has had informal joint use agreements with LAUSD in a partnership to deliver high-quality after-school enrichment programs to enrolled elementary school students ages 5 to 12. For nearly 20 years, LA's Best and LAUSD have had great success in working hand in hand, with minimal drama, dilemmas, or obstructions on either side, to do what is in the best interests of elementary school students and their families. We have shared classrooms, athletic fields, multi-purpose rooms, and storage facilities at more than 180 LAUSD locations, and we have used middle and high schools for events and training on school days, weekends, and evenings to mutual satisfaction. It helps that the internal LAUSD Beyond the Bell division is willing and able to add additional support and leverage when needed. We urge that this plan include the participation of Beyond the Bell, if not already referenced. Thank you.
Thank you. John Ayers. John.
Hi, my name is John Ayers. I am a homeowner, I am a husband, and I'm a parent of 2 young children. My older son is actually a second grade student at Beethoven Street Elementary School. And over the past few years, we've been very busy. We've made many efforts to build a positive relationship between our school and our surrounding community. And let me just run through what we've done. Professional murals have been put throughout our campus. We've planted 6 beautiful large magnolia trees along Beethoven Street as part of the Mayor's Million Tree Initiative. We've planted over 80 trees on our school site. We have been awarded CB grant in 2005, which we implemented a outdoor learning terrace. We also were awarded a CB grant in 2006, which we built a community square in front of our auditorium. We were the current recipients of the Ann and Kirk Douglas Playground Award. Another school in our area actually has their kindergarten yard open after school and on weekends. Which school would you rather go to? Would you rather go to the one that's full of activity and enjoyment and fun, where families can come out, or where my son goes, where at 2:30 it's locked and on the weekends it's locked? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our final speaker on this is Dorit Dollar Guerrero.
Hello, my name is Dorit Dollar Guerrero, and I'm a parent of a second grader at Mitchell Trina Street School. I'm also the chair of Friends of Mitchell Trina Street School, which is a project of community partners, and co-chair of Greater Silver Lakes Park Coalition. Mitchell Trina is located in a very densely populated part of Silver Lake, where majority of our kids live in multifamily dwellings with no access to playing outside. Silver Lake does have 2 great parks, but neither one of them are walkable from the school. Neither one of them are accessible by public transportation, and neither one of them have enough parking for anyone who wants to visit by car. And they're very crowded, very well used, and very difficult to go to on weekends or after school. I'm here today to encourage that you vote yes on the joint use motion and to consider Mitchell Trina Street School and or King Middle School as one of the 15 schools. Thank you.
Thank you. We now have council members wish to speak. Ms. Hahn?
Thank you very much. I appreciate all of you that came down today to speak on this. I too think this is a great idea. Really want to thank my council member friend Tom LaBonge for really bringing this forward. The time has definitely come. And I will tell you, the few people that decided to come down today and speak, I think, echo the majority of the residents in Los Angeles and the parents who are in the school district. I think it's time to really pay attention to what they've been saying for a very long time. They don't really understand why we can't work together, why we can't share facilities. And I will tell you, every time the residents of Los Angeles vote to approve one of the school bonds to build new schools, I know that they think, I'm sure they're going to figure out how to not just use this school during the day. I'm sure this is going to be a neighborhood school. It's going to be available to the community. And yet that seems to be something that we haven't figured out how to do yet. And I know when people drive by the schools and they're locked up on the weekends or in the afternoons, people think, why can't we work this out? And they've heard excuses from all of us for a lot of years on why we couldn't do it. But the time has come that we do it. It's the right time. And I know in the city of Los Angeles, every time we build a new gymnasium or a new library or a new park, it's certainly our intention that the school district use it, that the students use those facilities and those amenities for their recreational purposes. So the time has come when we finally work out an agreement. I know that the new facilities, it seems to be easier to work out these agreements. Although I will say I'm very excited about what's going on at Markham. We're working with the Boys and Girls Club to have a program there. I think that makes perfect sense. The kids in that community have a very unsafe time getting to and from school, so it makes sense to keep them there a little bit longer, provide a good activity for them. Angels Gate in San Pedro, I know we're working on a master plan. We're doing it from the ground up. and the school district has proposed a new school there, and we're a part of it. And I can see how that's going to be easier. I think my constituents would want to know, what about the existing facilities? What about the schools that are already there? Are we close to having some kind of a good template, working template, that will allow for those to be used by the community when school's not in session? And I don't know who really wants to answer that.
Councilwoman Hahn, I think that number one, obviously we have Beyond the Bell, who runs our permissive after-school program. In fact, my personal thing on this, my wife actually was a playground worker at Taper, and I know your brother lives near Taper, and so we have this.
My kids went there too.
Yeah. So actually, I think she was part of overseeing your niece. Jackson, exactly. There. So we have the permissive after-school programs from 3 to 6. We obviously have a Civic Center permit process where we're facilitating about 76,000 permits on an annual basis. So that's another way in. I think that at a middle school and a high school level, it becomes more complex because you have competition athletics, you have intramurals. Working with LA 84 Foundation, they've just launched a new middle school intramural program that functions Monday through Friday and on weekends. I think the area that is really the void, where we need to focus in on, is the weekends on elementary school sites. There are more elementary schools in LAUSD than any other middle school or high school. They're more closer to their neighborhoods than any of the larger institutions are. So it's those areas.
How's that going?
Right. So if you look at it from that perspective and you say, okay, well, let's break this down to where the real need is. It is the weekends. It is the summers. And it's at those elementary schools where we can unlock those gates with supervised programming. And it really comes down to funding. There is nothing, fortunately, negating our ability to enter in and execute joint use agreements with the City of LA currently. We have a master joint use agreement for Prop K, where LAUSD has been leveraging Prop K grants and executing further on for joint use there. But it's the question of resources and a supervised staff to go out there and monitor those activities during those downtimes.
Councilwoman, I wanted to say, because I work on a lot of this, it's hard.
Yeah, I know.
And it almost requires supervision. It has to require supervision because administrators are nervous about people getting into the school itself. And the older schools weren't designed for joint use in mind. So sometimes the students and the public have to walk through the school itself. And I think principals and administrators are very concerned that people from the public break into the school sites. So the way we're addressing it is through this initiative that Councilman Labange and People for Parks promoted. These pilot sites, one in each council district, or however we wish to do this, they're specifically for elementary school sites, and it also has a supervision aspect to it. So this will start breaking new ground, and we're really interested in doing this during the summer and during the weekends. It's to augment services. Monday through Friday is important, but sometimes after school use happens then. It's the weekends and the summer periods that we're trying to really augment.
Well, and we know that these kind of things are going to keep our kids in positive activities, because if we don't, the gang members are out there ready to recruit our kids and give them something to do. And I'll tell you, we expect to ask the voters of Los Angeles in November to maybe pay $3 a month, which will raise about $30 million a year for activities just like this. So I think if we have this documented partnership between LAUSD and the city, then that will certainly be eligible for some of this funding, which will be a steady revenue stream to support activities that will give our young people a real alternative to gang violence. So get that stuff done, and we're encouraged by this. We want to help you in any way we can. Thank you. It's going to be a lot of hard work, but it'll be worth it in the end.
Thank you. Mr. Rosendahl, followed by Mr. Huizar, Alarcon, Garcetti, Gruhl, and back to Mr. Labange.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. President. I'm over at Tom Labange's mic for the camera 35 to know where I'm at. I must say that, Tom, you did the right thing. It's a no-brainer for all of us. In my district, the biggest issue for me is to see how we can utilize those school facilities 24/7. After school, evenings, weekends. That's a big deal. And wherever we can tie that partnership together, the more effective it will be for communities. Story one. Story two, in conversations with Marlene Cantor, who's a school board member from my area, we've even been talking about putting housing on some of that property for average people, for teachers and fire people. In my district especially, it's almost impossible to find land where we can build, be it affordable housing or middle-class housing. And the conversations we're having about taking some school properties and building housing on it is absolutely a dream coming true. So it reminds me when I wanted to put a skateboard park at Venice High School many years ago, when this young man whose father and he lived with me couldn't find a place to skateboard park. So there's so many after-school activities, there's so many in-school activities that community can be involved in. In my district, I have 8 neighborhood councils. Every one of them are engaged with the community and with the schools. So we want to involve our neighborhood councils, which I consider a true grassroots democratic strategy that 1999 reform put in place. So I look forward to this in 45 days coming back, fleshing it out, and I look forward to us having meaningful partnerships in every one of my schools in my district. And I want to thank you all for coming. It's good to see you back in another reincarnation in front of us. It's a real pleasure to see you, and I know you're an asset to LAUSD like you've been an asset to the school system. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Mr. Huizar, followed by Mr. Alarcon.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And this is great that we're doing this. Having come from the school board, I recognize the need to do this now, working on the side of the city as well. And I think I want to pick on a point that Ms. Hahn raised, which I think the timing is right, because there was a time at the school district when we finally started building schools where we weren't building schools for a while. A lot of our schools were dilapidated, and with the new bond money, we're now getting to a comfort level that, in fact, we are building those schools. In fact, we are modernizing those schools. So before it was almost like a hands off, don't touch us, we got a whole other thing we're doing here. Don't even talk to us about working with you on additional things, because we're just trying to do the basics right now. So I think the timing is right, because now we're at a comfort level where we are building those schools. A lot of our schools are now getting modernized, so we could think about facilities. How do we get more creative? And as you all know, this is going to be a difficult job. Issues of operational costs, issues of liability, and in fact, there's discussion at the school district about charging outside groups to use the facilities. A lot of these outside groups don't have the money to pay. And they're not allowed on our parks because they're overused. So certainly it's going to be a very difficult issue to do, but I think we're going about it the right way, which is get everyone to the table, find outside groups like the nonprofits and advocates we see here, like my good friend John Perez, who understands this very well, to keep us accountable and be part of the process to move forward. We've done this in the past, and I think we've seen some success on public safety, for example. I know, Paul, you were part of that when you worked for Mr. Lansing, that we saw some success in keeping our kids safer when the city and the school district worked together to do that, and we stopped the silo approach to a lot of the things we're doing. And as Ms. Cooper mentioned, these are the same kids, whether we're the city or the school district. We got to work together to provide the best possible resources and get away from the silo mentality I think that we've had for a long time. So I look forward to your recommendations. I think the dogfight hasn't started. When we have to sit down and say who's going to pay for what, who's going to pay the liability insurance, and how are we going to allow different groups to get on our campuses, that's really when the hard work kicks in. But we got to go about it. We can't avoid it any further, and the timing is right. So I look forward to seeing what comes out of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Carla Sanger just arrived in council. We'll let you speak too, Carla. Mr. Alarcon, Mr. Garcetti, Ms. Gruhl, and Mr. Labange.
Yes, it's my pleasure as the co-author of Tom Labange's motion and chair of the Education Committee that we move forward on this item. But I also want my colleagues to understand that this is just recreation in parks. There's no reason to believe that we cannot move forward with libraries and even police service and other departments of the city, in fact, many, many departments. But I would ask my colleagues to reflect on Tom LaBonge's leadership with regard to the parks and think about those committees that you chair and how those committees might establish joint use agreements with the school district to enhance their opportunities. And so I would like to say as chair of the Education Committee that we will be conducting hearings on just that. And I would ask all of those chairs, I would rather that all the chairs do it than I try to do it all. And so I'm very pleased that Mr. LaBonge has taken that leadership so that we can spread the load. Right now, there are only 30 joint use agreements with Rec and Parks and the school district, and most of those are for construction projects and temporary. There are another 17 that are pending. We have 400 schools, and last time I checked, there are parks around every one of them. And yet, we do not have, while we have some leadership qualities in park directors and in principals that reach out and they have cooperative agreements by verbal agreements usually, I think it's time that we develop the use of joint use agreements to formalize that process, but also to develop a model that can be relied on, can be explored, can be viewed and replicated in other opportunities. And I think that's what the shortcoming is. We know that every park and every library is already working with the schools. We just don't know to what extent and whether it's consistent and whether they are maximizing the opportunities. And so with Mr. LaBonge's leadership in Rec and Parks, the model that will be developed with my friend Jack Foley, John Perez. Jack Foley and I were talking about this before I was a city councilman in the 80s, actually. And so we want to thank him especially for being consistent and constant and knowing that you don't always get what you want immediately, but sometimes the long-term reward is even better. But we also have to look at our libraries and the other departments in the city to establish these kinds of agreements, to formalize it and to expand on it, but also to take ownership, to the accountability, to increase literacy, reduce the dropout rate. We have to claim ownership as a city to those goals. And although we have the agreements, we don't claim ownership to those problems. We keep saying it's their problem. No, it's our problem. And today, with the announcement by Mayor Villaraigosa of the parents voting for support of the city partnership with the school district, I can't think of a better day to have this hearing than on a day when the parents have voted to allow the city to help them in their schools.
Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you all for listening to a lot of council members give their feedback after listening to a lot of the public, and the coalition that you've built do the same. I was very pleased to meet early on with People for Parks about this and to begin to kind of put our heads together about what we can do to expand existing green space in Los Angeles. And thank you, Mr. LaBonge, for moving this to the next level of discussion. You know, it's tough because for those of us who are kind of veterans now, I guess, around here, we've heard the school district and the city have the best of intentions for a long time. And I really do believe there's been the best of intentions and many attempts beyond just good intentions to execute. And I know that the parks community and the environmental community and the neighborhood communities want this as well. And I think there have been a lot of successes in the midst of these discussions, probably propelled on by that. I think of Washington Irving Middle School, and one of the places where we were able to put artificial turf, work with the Anahuac Soccer League, and that is a great success where every weekend and after school there are kids that are playing soccer on that field at Washington Irving. We're building at Dayton Heights. Actually, we're funding from the city a joint use facility that will be there for the community in Virgil Village in East Hollywood by the 101 and Vermont. I was thinking at Berkeley. Berkeley was an early education center that's in Echo Park, where the school district has recently come to us and said, look, we can't maintain this anymore. We're not using it for anything except offices. And we came to them with a proposal to do green space of maybe a skate park or a community garden or something. And they gave us great news a couple weeks ago and said, you know, we'll maintain ownership of it, but it's yours. Knock yourselves out. And then when looking through two other things, at Belmont right now, we're in the process of trying to make that a place where we can put a field in that isn't dust 11 months of the year, to possibly in the future the city step up and vacate the street next to it and turn that into a park. We have all these rich opportunities, and the school district has often not communicated with the city, and the city with the school district about the architecture of our neighborhoods. That's a missed opportunity with so much building that's gone on that we haven't really unified that. But we also haven't done a good job of urban planning together. So I think this moves us forward in doing that, and finally brings all the elements together that have been missing, because we've done this always in vacuums. We've had some successes, but too many failures, too many moments where we've seen schools built where we don't have those joint use opportunities. Helen Bernstein is going to be a really important one for the center of Hollywood, especially as we build a cat park over the freeway of the 101 to make that part of a unified green space as well, and the district has stepped up on that one. I want to thank them for that too. In terms of looking at charter schools, that's part of what we're going to be looking at as well, or has that been a part of the discussion at all? I don't know if anybody... They are public schools, so we're publicly funded schools.
For this specific initiative, I don't know if People for Parks has entertained that at this point. We certainly are engaging the charter school community on multiple issues, including facilities. So with regards to this, I think that for all intents and purposes, our public schools, our non-charter schools, have the facilities to facilitate these kinds of programs. Charter schools are a bit limited in terms of their facilities. Many of them are in, I would say, facilities that would be non-conforming to playgrounds or open space. That's a challenge for them, and I think we have been working with the charter school community in addressing those matters. But as it relates to this motion, I think that we're identifying, and correct me if I'm wrong, anyone, traditional elementary schools. And I do want to say, by the way, Councilman Garcetti, I want to thank your office, because I've been working with Heather Repenning and others, and Helen as well, and we are leveraging dollar for dollar every Prop K grant that comes in from the city. So you mentioned Helen Bernstein. We're going to be front funding the artificial turf there, matching the Prop K over at Belmont, as well as Dayton Heights. And I want to also appreciate and thank you for your support on Glassell Park as well, where we funded about $3 million for that project, which also has an affordable housing component to it.
Yeah. And that's a great message for the district. Is we've always been a self-help city. We kind of pony up. We don't just say, you do it to us. We've actually put our money where our mouths are for facilities and sometimes even ongoing staffing. And that's a tough thing to ask of Rec and Parks when we're, in my district we had 13 parks when I started. We'll open our 20th new one, so we'll be up to 33 later this month, and we've got, I think, 5 more on tap to go. So we'll almost triple the number of parks. And I realize what that does to Rec and Parks, because we didn't triple the number of staff you have in my district. I know that, though we will, one way or another. So if we could also look, and I'll talk to people for Parks as well, about some of the charter schools, only because, I'm thinking through like Pueblo Nuevo High School, which is there at that, what I call dysfunction junction, where Virgil and Temple and Beverly and all meet in the worst intersection anywhere. But they're looking for green space. They came to the city looking for the funding to do that possibly, and I said, well, what's our community joint use agreement going to look like? And I think with some of those individual schools, we have the ability to act quite nimbly in making sure those come in, and that's uncharted territory. Ms. Hahn has done a lot, I know, on charter schools in general, and trying to get our city planning department to help. But we should tie in, Mr. Labange, if we can, some of the charter schools as well to that effort to make sure they're there too. But congratulations, Mr. Labange, and thank you to the coalition. It's really represented by a lot of great people. Nice to see parents here, as well as the community members and environmentalists and our labor unions and everybody else. So congratulations today, and you have my full support.
Thank you. Ms. Gruhl, Mr. Wesson, Mr. Labange.
Thank you, and I want to compliment Mr. Labange for his leadership on this issue. It's so important, and we all have our individual stories, and I know Carla Sanger was pointed out earlier by Mr. Zine, but Carla was a member of the implementing group before she became the executive director or president, I don't know the title of LA's Best. But the first response we received in 1988 was no. When we came to LA Unified School District and said we will pay for the use of the property, we will hire people, we will pay for the operation, and the answer was no. Thank goodness Tom Bradley did not take no for an answer, and we move forward, and it's one of the most successful, I think, joint use programs in the LAUSD, along with Beyond the Bell, which has developed relationships. And I think I wanted to stand and say we've made a lot of progress. We have a long way to go. And I know a school in my district, the Roy Romer School, which hasn't opened yet, but is near the park there, that there have been a lot of discussions of that kind of joint use with the park space we have there at Valley Plaza Park, and how we can make those connections. And it is so critically important because we don't have a lot of new buildings that we're building. You're able to, from the school district, have these new schools, and it is seen as a community center. And the most activism you see from people are from parents who live in those neighborhoods. And as mentioned, as a parent of a 4-year-old, parks and schools are kind of the two top things for us these days. And to see the linkage be developed is very important, and the relationship, and to thank the president of the school board, Monica Garcia, who I know has been a big advocate, and the school district as a whole. So we look forward to looking at the pilot programs, that I think the 15 that Mr. LaBonge had in his motion, and to looking at places in our community. But I wanted to stand up and say, thank goodness things have changed since 1988, and that if you want to see something that works, that program really was one of the first joint use aspects of it, and to be able to help. With limited resources we have out there, the fact is we've got to look at new sources of where we can have parks and play space, and a way in which we can bring the city and the school district together. So congratulations, Mr. LaBonge. Congratulations to all of you who, I know have, as Mr. Alico mentioned, been talking about this for a very long time. This is not the first, but we actually have a council, mayor, and a school board and school district that say the time has come, albeit we're all a little late to the game, but this is what we need to do for the future. So thank you. An exciting day in Los Angeles. Thank you very much, Mr. Zine. And by the way, you're doing a great job up there.
Well, thank you. According to Mr. Alico, we're only 27 years late, but better late than never. Mr. Wesson, Mr. LaBonge, and then Ms. Singer, if you want to say a few words, we can get to you after we get to the council members.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. I think that it's a wonderful thing that you're trying to create these partnerships. It makes sense. This region is park poor, and any way we can expand that is a good thing. But what I say in particular to LAUSD, you guys need to realize that the door swings both ways. And what I would request, even though this is a little off the subject, is we have a great high school in the district that I represent, Dorsey High School, and I do everything that I can to help them, but we don't have a joint use agreement with them. They use the Rancho Park. I've had to put together money to get a new track built. They use that track. They play softball, they play baseball, they play football, and they use other park amenities. So I mean, and then when I need some help or assistance, the LAUSD says, oh no, we don't do that. I think they should. LAUSD has more money than God. You should contribute as well. So what I want to do is say to the mayor's office that as we move forward, we need to speak with LAUSD to try to come up with a relationship where you help us pay the freight. I just think that it's only fair. So I want to put that on the agenda, and I would like for somebody to come back to my office or come back to me and let me know the progress.
Yes, sir, we will. And we have been meeting with Rec and Parks and LAUSD just on that. We've been in contact with your staff. It's a great site because of the train line coming through, and I believe LAUSD has like upwards of at least $8 million to $10 million worth of investments that are going to take place at Dorsey. Yes. We're trying to steer some of that to the field as well, because that's a historic field.
And we should do that, because if I remember correctly, the student population there will almost double when they finish these improvements, which is great. I'm glad that they were able to increase the size of the school, because that means I didn't have to have a fight with them over another location to build a school, and I'm glad that that occurred. But all I'm saying is it's a great community. The more we put in together, the better it will be.
And I couldn't agree more, Councilman Weston. I do want to thank you and your office for helping us work through the issues at Dorsey and with MTA, as well as your participation in the Ambassador project, where we are partnering with the city and CRA on developing a memorial park on the frontage of Wilshire. I would love to facilitate a project at Dorsey High School where the school uses its own facilities for those athletic purposes. I'd love to go in and redevelop that stadium and build out a football stadium for Dorsey, just like we partnered at Crenshaw High School, and we saw the outcome of that project there. We have had conversations with LA 84 as well as your office in Rec and Parks in developing a strategic plan on how we address the issues between Rancho Cienega and Dorsey High School. It is on the radar screen. We have made an investment of $1 million in the auditorium with a nonprofit foundation for the auditorium space there, but clearly there are opportunities to develop further joint use there at the fields. And again, I would love to see a situation where we do have these cross-promotional and synergies in programming, but to be quite candid, Dorsey High School should be utilizing its facilities for those athletic purposes, and the fact that it can't really sticks out to me as a problem. And
I agree with you, but I think given the space that we have there, if there's a true partnership between the city and LAUSD, the things that we can do on that acreage, unbelievable things.
Certainly.
I would not want to take all of those activities and place them solely at Dorsey. But if there's a way we can reconfigure a few things, make a larger park space, that's what we want to do. Where it relates to the actual stadium, let's talk. I mean, I'm going to redo the entire track, and maybe what we can do is work together and try to redo the field with that brand new turf, something that lasts 25 years. So I'm excited about the opportunity. You're doing great things at Laces, which is in the district that I represent as well. But that's a lot of acreage, and if we partner, we can maximize its usage.
there's no doubt Rancho Cienega is a humongous asset in your district, and there's no doubt about it. We should be doing more and working together and partnering and leveraging each other's assets and resources to make that facility a much better place for people to recreate.
Well, here's the olive branch. Come take it.
All right, you got it.
Thank you. Before Mr. Labange, we have a card from the public.
I just wanted to chime in quickly.
Pardon me?
On behalf of the board president, because I know if she were here, she would speak to that. And I want to say that representing her and also as a former council staffer, our office agrees with you wholeheartedly that joint use is a two-way process. And I want to quote Eric Garcetti, because he came to the President's Joint Commission on LAUSD governance a couple years ago when I first started, and he's here in council, and he said, he challenged all of the commissioners to not think about what they could get out of the process, but what they could give up and offer to the other commissioners. And I think that that's the mentality that we need to bring to our working group as we get started, because the work is really just beginning. So keep challenging us to think about how we can be more creative about sharing our resources.
Mr. President, I challenge you to give a Herb Wesson quote.
Here we go. It's time of the quotes. Mr. Reyes.
I can think of many, and none are apropos.
Mr. Reyes, you're up. Mr. Reyes, you're up.
Yes. Thank you, Council President. First, I want to thank you for all the efforts being demonstrated. When we tried doing the joint development between school district and housing, granted it's a different animal, it's a different type of facility, but the principles apply. And I'm hoping that as you go through this contractual phase of how we negotiate costs, that we understand the value that we both need to understand in terms of what we're not doing for the kids. Because within bureaucracies, we get caught up with, well, you have to pay for this, we got to pay for that. We come to a standstill, nothing happens. You know, I worked on a joint housing joint housing school for 3 years, almost 4. And in the end, it blew up because no one wanted to budge. As a result, the nonprofit went through a hardship, nothing got built, and now we're making another run at that property. But the bottom line is both bureaucracies became more important than the community. And so how are we going to know what phases you're going through as you go through these discussions in our respective schools, and how is it that we can help facilitate those discussions, because each area has its own distinct set of challenges. Have you spoken to that yet, or is it just more of we're going to start and it's not clear how you're going to approach this? Can you give us some insight?
I think from the mayor's office perspective, the most important thing is to have a designated member from your staff that we can work with so that the communication from your needs, from your council office needs, are driven into our process. Because like on all the joint use projects that we've been working on recently, I always work with your staff completely. And that's the best way to get everything sewn up. So if you wish to designate a certain person and pick a certain school or more than one school, it makes it easier for us to reflect your needs.
Okay, great. And I appreciate that, because that at least allows all the stakeholders to be at the table as we move forward on issues of design and agreements and which organizations are included and who we need to include. And the public safety element is important as well. So understanding how, whether it's a clear program or a gang intervention program, again, not to muddle the waters here, because we want this to be for everyone, not just gang members or ex-gang members. I mean, it should be for everybody. So I don't want to predetermine how we're going to use this. But those are important variables in different parts of town, because the intensity of those issues vary as well. So I appreciate that. One last point, and I'll stop with this. Will this give us the opportunity to influence the construction side of the school process to perhaps promote green rooftops, where the buildings themselves and the rooftops can become places for parks? Right now, we have vast rooftops that are generating a lot of heat. We're not being opportunistic with the technology we have today. Thanks to Councilmember Perry and the work our office has been doing in terms of promoting green rooftops, we'll have our first test case. We're learning from the city's efforts in building a green rooftop what the cost issues are like. But imagine if we were able to have rooftops as an accessible place for the seniors, as a form of sanctuary. Or in my district, in parts of Koreatown, you have driving courses right inside the middle of a very intense commercial area. But they found a way to engineer and design these facilities. And this is for recreation, for golf. Why can't we do this for our kids? So again, I'd just like to put that on the table as we go through those discussions.
Well, in fact, on Friday, I'm having a phone conversation with Guy Mahula from the construction side at LAUSD to discuss green roofs in particular, because the funding is already going in place for all these projects.
Right.
We could tap a lot of the state infrastructure bonds and apply for grants to offset the costs.
Right.
So it's easier to do those projects while they're in the design process.
Exactly.
And so it's really important that we capture those. The ones that I've been hearing about that have been driven a lot of interest is elementary schools and middle schools, because of the educational aspect for our youth. But I'd be happy to work with you on a project or more in your district if the schools are coming up.
Well, what I find very unsettling is that all of the low-hanging fruit as far as the land is concerned for building new schools are gone. Now we're talking about locations where we're literally having to assess displacement issues, whether they're homes or commercial areas. And we don't know where those locations are yet, because we don't want to start off with panic. But the fact is, if they're going to meet their goals, my big question is where? And if it's going to be in areas that are very dense already because of the presence of kids who need schools, then what is going to be removed in its place? And so the notion of green rooftops and dealing with meeting the state code needs for play space or recreational or exercise is something that we have to be creative with. So again, thank you so much, and I look forward to working with you on this.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Carlos Sanger, beyond the bill. And then we have Sharon Brewer in the Valley, and then Mr. Labange to close.
Thank you very much. So myself on this,
Easy,
too.
don't get too excited.
Councilmember Labange, members of council, I don't believe we have ever had as much human capital devoted to making ideas to intentions to implementation in partnerships with the school district and the city as we have right this moment. What an exciting time. We know it can work. You've heard from Wendy, you've heard from LA's Best, but I also feel that it's not easy. There are conversations that we have to keep having. I respect very much Councilmember Reyes and others that know it's not easy, but we can't give up. That's what's happened in the past. And I think those of us who've been around City Hall for 20 years know that. The conversations, the relationships, the dialogues, we have to keep on keeping on, and I know this is the time in the group to do that. So bravo to all of you. I'm here if I can be helpful to anybody at any time to move this agenda forward, and it's pretty exciting. Thank you.
Mr. Labange.
So members, this has been great. I'm going to ask one last question to Jerry Miller, our legislative analyst. As you know, this is December. Next month is the new year. We're going to look to come back. We're going to have a joint meeting with LA Unified. Mr. Alarcon, thank you for your support and leadership. We're going to meet over at the school board with the appropriate committee to push this along in January or February, which I think is important. And I love what you said, Mr. Alarcon, about Jack Foley. Because I remember him of his great days at Cal State Northridge, as you did, and his work as a recreation advocate, which is all this is coming together. And Carly, you said it so well, as it's all coming together right now. And I don't want to pass the name of John Leahy, who was a great advocate for LA Unified on Beyond the Bell, who is a saint in my mind. Jerry, I want you to be a saint. I want you from the Legislative Analyst's Office to turn it around so that we can try to push forward all this goodness to really make this happen. So we're looking for reports back in 45 days around the beginning of February to schedule these committee meetings to get some kind of agreement to move forward. Does that work with you, Jerry?
That will be fine.
Good. Okay, members, I thank you, everybody, for their leadership. Give People for Parks a big hand right there for coming down and doing their job.
Mr.
And each
Labange,
council
we have
member.
one more speaker, Mr. Labange, Sharon Brewer in the Valley. Sharon Brewer. And then we'll take the vote. Sharon Brewer.
Thank you. Sharon Brewer, on item number 21. As I stated in public comment, my question has to do with jurisdiction problems. During school hours, I would assume it's LAUSD and school police, but when after school, when it's recreation and parks, is it recreation and parks staff? Where's the staff coming from? Rec and Parks budget. When it comes to safety issues or problems, is it Office of Public Safety? Handling the problems. Right now, there's not enough Office of Public Safety officers to take care of the existing Rec and Parks facilities. Also, after school, at the schools, who has say about the programs at the schools? And I heard that Rec and Parks said that they've identified funds from the unappropriated balance. I don't think that that's really identifying funds because those funds would be used for something else. So my biggest problem is jurisdiction, liability problems, if something happens when Recreation and Parks is using the facilities. And again, who decides who can use the facilities? Right now, LAUSD doesn't want to let communities like Pop Warner Football use their facilities without paying a fee. And would that be considered with this joint use? Joint use is a great thing, just the liability issues and where the staffing is going to come from. Thank you.
All right, thank you. That matter is now up for a vote. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Next item, please, Madam Clerk.
Next item, Mr. President, item number 26, and that was called special by Councilmember Hahn.
Ms. Hahn, we have item number 26 before us.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I just wanted to call this special and highlight the fact that this is the MOU with our Port Police for their 2006-2009 contract. And I really want to thank all of the members of EERC who worked with the Port Police in the finer points of this contract. I really want to thank our CAO, Karen Sisson, for working to make sure this happened. Good job, everybody. You know, it's an opportunity, I think, too, to just highlight our Port Police. They are first rate, they're well trained, they're an excellent law enforcement agency, they keep our port safe. It's an incredible jurisdiction which they cover, and since 9/11, I think their duties, their responsibilities, and the danger has increased dramatically. And you know, one of the first things that Dennis Zine and I did in 1999 was put in our city charter, Section 657, the Los Angeles Port Police shall remain under the independent and autonomous control of the Harbor Department. And since we made that the law of the City of Los Angeles, it has really dramatically, I think, increase the effectiveness of our port police officers. And then we worked to increase the ranks and increase the retention of the officers who are working for the Harbor Police. And in 2005, the people of Los Angeles overwhelmingly voted to give our port police officers the equal pension that our LAPD officers enjoy. And since then, we have gone from 50 members of the Port Police to 110 officers. And next year, the goal is 200 officers. And I think because of those two things, we're going to be able to recruit more officers and certainly keep the ones that we have and increase their training. You know, they're the first line of defense in keeping this port complex secure. It is, in my opinion, still probably the most vulnerable entryway into this country. Is our harbor, and it's up to them on a daily basis to be on that front line on what may possibly happen there. And I just want to always take the opportunity that we will remain committed to keeping them autonomous and independent and trained, specializing in underwater diving teams, maritime-related measures. And this MOU that we're approving today is really a step in our efforts to keep them as one of the most well-trained, efficient law enforcement agencies in this region. So congratulations to everyone who worked on this, and I really appreciate all of you for making sure that they had a good contract. And to remind everybody, we can do this contract with no impact to the general fund in the City of Los Angeles. This is paid 100% by the Port of Los Angeles. So this is certainly a win-win for all of us. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you, Ms. Hahn. And I know the ERC worked very hard on this one. Mr. Zine serves on the ERC, as does Ms. Gruhl. So, Mr. Zine, would you like to say something about this?
I just want to acknowledge Councilor Hahn for being the safeguard of the Port Police, and she's watching out for you, Port Police, all the time. And I know that the operations that I've witnessed between LAPD and the federal agencies and the Port Police have always been premier. So the message back to the Port Police is we're very supportive of what you do to protect that port, all the goods that pass through that port, all the passengers that pass through the terminal. So I just want to acknowledge Janice Hahn for standing up and making sure that the Port Police are protected, respected, and to the Port Police for doing the good job that they do and the cooperation they have with other law enforcement agencies, a premier agency here in the City of Los Angeles. So congratulations. It's been a while. You've been waiting for it. Danny Alleman, who's there, is going to retire in another year. Another contract done before you retire, Sergeant Alleman. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zine. And with that, thank you to the Port Police for their service, and we're looking very much forward to ratifying this contract. So let's go ahead and open the roll to make it official. Close the roll and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
That is approved. Congratulations, and we'll send that forthwith. Mr. Weisar.
Yes, Mr. President, if we could reconsider item number 28.
Okay.
And I'd like to continue that item for a week at the request of Mr. Rosenthal, who would like to have a further discussion on that item.
Let's go ahead then and open the roll on reconsideration of 28. Please close the roll And tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Without objection, you said 1 week? I'm sorry?
Yes,
Okay. So that'll be our final meeting of the year. That will be the 19th of December. Okay? Next item, please.
Next item is item number 29, call special for a card from the public, and there is a substitute motion that has been distributed for item number 29C.
Okay, colleagues, there's been a substitute motion. Without objection, that will be accepted. And Sharon Brewer is our first speaker on 29. After that will be Miriam Fogler out in Van Nuys. Good morning, or good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Sharon Brewer, item number 29, special event fee waivers, 7 totals, 6 with amounts, 1 to reimburse. The total is $11,623. On 12/11, you had 17 total, 12 with amounts for $48,256, 5 to reimburse. The total so far for December, counting today, is $134,526. I would like to take and refer to Council File 02-0088, City Policy to Fee Waivers and City Assisted Events, a Weiss Mover, 2002. In it, it talks about looking at the fee waivers, and what is more interesting is that it said, moreover, the city currently faces a severe budgetary challenge that mandates that we closely scrutinize every aspect of the city's revenue sources and expenditures. So obviously, this problem has been going on since 2002, and nobody has really addressed it. There are reports from the CLA analysts as of 2/6/2006. And it seems like all the fee waivers end up going and being stuck in the Budget and Finance Committee. There are a number of council files that have sat there, and because they've sat there for 2 years, are now receive and file. And I think that they need to take and go back and look at these questions about the fee waivers and start making some decisions and being more strict on the fee waivers. Thank you.
Thank you. Miriam Fogler is our next speaker. After that will be Donna Pearman.
The Daily News should be doing a big story on this, and I don't know why they haven't. They talk about the phone tax. It's so scrupulous. It's a joke, just like but getting on the special events things, this is very, very imperative that the Daily News get on the ball and expose this to the people here. I don't know, half the city doesn't realize that these special events are adding up, and they're getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's just, there's just no end to it. You got a bottomless pit of money here, it looks like. There's no end tomorrow, and the lights keep going on and off. I don't know if the water and power is losing money here. The light just went off, folks. And there's nobody here to speak on these things. This is very important. The Daily News needs to expose this and get some live bodies down here. We need to let the public know that these fees here are not being carefully looked at, because she told me just now that the people are not even the expertise on this. And I don't know. I tried to get into the city too, trying to get a job many years ago, and I could have straightened this out and made sure that the fee waivers were done right, at least. I don't know why there can't be efficiency here. Why can't we use the civil service to get people who are competent? Instead of going around the civil service, we should be using it. And that's how we can have accountability going on here and have our budget finally balanced and cut out a lot of pork barrel expenses. Thank you.
Thank you. Donna Pearman is our final speaker on this item.
Yeah, Councilman Zine looked very handsome in his suit, and I love your tie, Councilman Garcetti. And
It was a gift from Mr. Zine. Thank you.
Oh, wow. First, I'm glad you didn't allow the public to speak to you Councilman Garcetti, in that way. Council and the public deserve respect. Anyway, I looked at the agenda. I'm going to speak in general. I guess one day of fee waivers wasn't enough. In the meantime, we need better services for the disabled. We can't even get enough free parking at Van Nuys City Hall, and you wish to use city money to waive all these events. These fees are not as high, but it adds up. These fee waivers are so automatic. Council Lady Carey almost forgot to have a vote one time. I only hope that you scrutinize them before they come, but I doubt it. Why are we paying for LAUSD? Don't they have their own money to pay for things? I again repeat, we need alternative methods for the city instead of waiving all these fees. You are taking money from us. We don't get a say on this, only through our vote. We can vote you out, but only I feel any new council member would do the same thing. Please put a cap on fee waivers, and let's start today. Vote no. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Pearman. That is our last speaker for these community events. If we can please open the roll on them, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That is approved. Next order of business, please.
Council has motions for posting and referral.
Those are posted and referred.
There are excuses on the desk. Councilmember Alacon requests to be excused Tuesday, December 18th to arrive at 12:15 for city business that meets council policy.
Mr. Alacon is excused.
Councilmember Hahn requests to be excused Friday, February 8th for city business that meets council policy.
We will excuse Ms. Hahn then.
Councilmember Hahn also requests to be excused on January 25th, March 28th, May 23rd, July 25th, September 26th, and November 21st to leave at 11:30. Those all meet council policy, except a motion is required for the 25th.
For which 23rd, which month was that?
I'm sorry, for January 25th, the motion is required.
Okay. So we're down to 11 members that day?
Yes.
Okay. I will move that, and we'll play that by ear a little bit on that day. Ms. Gruhl can second that. If there's no objection, that excuse is granted. Okay.
Councilmember Cardenas requests to be excused Friday, January 25th for city business that meets council policy.
Okay, he's excused.
Councilmember Weiss requests to be excused January 18th, 25th, 29th, and February 15th, all for personal business. The motion is required on the 25th, and that would take council to 10.
Take the 10. Okay. Let's hold that excuse on the desk just until next meeting. That one. And
okay. Do you wish to
the other ones
grant the other ones, the
yes, please.
18th, the 29th, and...
Yeah.
And then Councilmember Gruhl requests to be excused Wednesday, January 16th for personal business to leave at 12:30, and that meets council policy.
Okay, she's excused.
And that clears the desk.
Okay. Any business announcements, colleagues, committees, or anything else? If not, can we please all rise for adjourning motions? Thank you, colleagues. I ask that we adjourn today in memory of Diana Tomas. You may have read her story in the California section today of Los Angeles Times. She was a 14-year-old who was killed December 2nd with a gunshot near the Benton Way off-ramp of the 101. I know all of us who spend time in that area, and even people who just drive by on the 101 right next to a wall next to where you exit going southbound on the 101 on Benton Way. She was discovered December 2nd. She was a Virgil Middle School student. This is a middle school student who was shot and killed. Described by her family as a vibrant, happy young lady who liked to write. Diana, unfortunately, joins two other 14-year-olds we have buried in the last 2 months in Rampart and the east section of Hollywood Division. Both of them were Belmont high school students, and now this is a Virgil Middle School student. Police, if you have any information, December 2nd, this was in the afternoon, and there was a gunshot that was heard in a small pathway right next to the south off-ramp. She was found dead. The circumstances of her death, unfortunately, it was not connected that she was 14 years old, and so her mother, who had seen her missing or who had missed her, they weren't able to put together until much later that the deceased person that they had at the Los Angeles County morgue was Diana. But the police are looking for information about the killing. If you have any knowledge of anything about the shooting of Diana Tomas, please call the police at 213-207-2060. And we mourn the loss of such a young Angelino, such a vibrant young lady here in the heart of our city. May she rest in peace. All members, thank you. Are there adjourning motions? Ms. Perry? Okay. Then Ms. Perry? Oh, after we adjourn? Oh, please. Okay. That'll be the last adjourning motion. Then Ms. Perry, something?
Very quickly, I just wanted, for purposes of clarification, make a motion for reconsideration on item 8 to remove item 8 from the agenda for today.
Okay. So let's go ahead and open
For a motion for reconsideration.
reconsideration. If there's no objection on 8, please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
And then, just for clarification, to have item 8 removed from today's agenda.
Okay.
I'm sorry, for clarification, is that referred back to committee, withdrawn and referred back to committee?
Yes.
Okay. Well, without objection, we'll refer. Yeah.
It'll go back to planning.
Okay. We'll send back to Plum item number 8 without objection. Okay.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Alarcon, Cardenas, Gruelhan, Weezer, Labange, Perry, Reyes, Rosendahl, Weiss, Wesson, Sine, Garcetti.
We will next meet this Friday, December 14th. As a reminder, we will not be meeting the 21st, a week from Friday. So we have this Friday's meeting, Tuesday and Wednesday of next week, and then we will be in recess until January. Want to have as many members as possible there for Wednesday, so make sure we're going to be here for a bit. But until then, thank you to the members of our Channel 35 staff.